I forgave once, then a second time, but the third time, I chose divorce. Forever. Someone once told me, if you love enough, there will always be room for forgiveness. I believed it. Believed it to the point where I used every shred of remaining trust, every broken piece of belief to stay after the second time. I clung to that saying like a prayer, a flickering lighthouse in the storm of doubt and hurt that gnawed at my soul. I told myself that love, if strong enough, would heal all wounds, mend all cracks no matter how deep. I tried to be the forgiving one, the magnanimous one, the one willing to sacrifice my own happiness, burying private desires to cling to a home, teetering on the brink of collapse, a home that only I was building while the other person seemed to have left long ago. I put on the cloak of forgiveness, outwardly appearing as a strong man, ready to face any challenge, any storm. But inside, I was a weak man, only knowing how to hide my fear, my pain with a cold, indifferent exterior. I had turned myself into a lonely warrior fighting a battle that only I still wanted to win. But when people don't want to be forgiven, then compassion is just a place for them to step on and move forward, a soft cushion for them to comfortably betray without worrying about consequences. And then compassion is no longer a virtue, but self-destruction, a double-edged sword slowly cutting into one's own heart. I had given too much to the point of my own depletion. I caught her on a heavily rainy afternoon at a coffee shop 5 kilometers from our house. The spring rain ceaselessly pattered like the whispering of fate, each cold drop touching my soul, signaling something ominous and unavoidable end. The cozy coffee shop, the soothing jazz music, the faint aroma of roasted coffee, all created a perfect scene. A stark contrast to the storm raging within me, a terrifyingly fake peace. She didn't see me. She was too engrossed in her own world in the moment of happiness she was creating for herself. But I saw her clearly sitting across from a strange man. He wasn't particularly striking, just an ordinary man, but his gaze towards her was anything but ordinary. Her eyes lit up, radiant like sunshine after rain, a kind of light I hadn't seen in her for a long time. Perhaps for a very long time, since the flame in our marriage slowly flickered out. Her smile wasn't just a polite gesture. It was an expression of true joy, of contentment that I had never been able to bring her no matter how hard I tried. Her hand lightly touched his fingers on the table, a seemingly accidental gesture, but one filled with haunting significance, a silent signal of intimacy, of a new connection. Not overly intimate, not overly ostentatious, but enough for me to know this was no longer a fleeting moment of weakness, a temporary mistake made in a rush of impulse, or a momentary crush. This was a choice. A deliberate, well-considered choice, executed decisively and cruelly, without hesitation or regret. I didn't storm in. I didn't cause a scene in the crowded cafe, didn't create chaos, didn't let my anger ruin her happy moment. I just stood outside the glass door under the pouring rain, each drop soaking into my coat, chilling me to the bone, but not as cold as the freezing in my heart. I looked at a version of my wife I no longer recognized. A strange woman laughing and chatting happily with another man while at home. I was still trying to mend a long-broken relationship, still deceiving myself about a home that no longer existed, a love that had died. I had turned myself into a stalker, a detective in my own life. That evening, she came home later than usual, around 11 p.m. The click of the lock echoed in the silent house. I had hot water ready. 2 cups of chamomile tea poured, her favorite when it rained, to soothe tension, to warm her body. A deeply ingrained habit, a gesture of care that had become meaningless. I placed them on the glass coffee table in the living room, right next to my phone, where I had prepared the evidence. A hastily taken photo from the coffee shop, blurry, but enough to incriminate everything, enough to expose the raw truth. She walked into the house. Her hair and coat were slightly damp, carrying the faint scent of coffee and a strange fragrance, not her usual perfume. An alluring new scent, as if she had stepped out of another world, a world I knew nothing about, to which I didn't belong. Her eyes glanced over me as if nothing was unusual, as if I were just an invisible shadow in this house, as if everything was fine, peaceful, still on its usual course. "Where were you?" I asked, my voice flat, but inside was a storm, a volcano ready to erupt, thousands of questions interrogating her. She took off her coat, hung it on the hook, not looking at me, not even a glance. "Out with a friend." Her voice was nonchalant, cold, as if answering an unimportant social question. "Which friend?" I pressed my gaze fixed on her, trying to find a hint of embarrassment, a flicker of remorse in her eyes, a tiny spark of repentance, no matter how small. It was then that she paused, turned to me, her gaze unwavering, even defiant, firm. "You know, don't you?" I nodded. A slow, heavy nod. No further confirmation needed, no more words to be said. The truth was too clear, raw and painful, with nothing left to hide. "How long?" I asked, my voice already hoarse, every word torn from my chest like a self-inflicted stab wound. Almost 2 months. She replied, her voice eerily calm, as if talking about something obvious, something that caused her no emotion, no concern, no hesitation, no evasion, no remorse. Do you still think you're wrong? I asked the last question I needed to hear, the question that would decide everything, the question that would end everything. I looked directly into her eyes, trying to find a glimmer of conscience, a touch of regret. She looked straight at me. Her eyes were devoid of any ripple, any emotion, only emptiness and ultimate coldness, and said, "I'm sorry if it hurt you, but I'm not sorry for seeking emotions I no longer have with you." I was silent. For a long time. The entire room seemed to plunge into nothingness, only the faint patter of rain outside the window and the sound of my heart shattering into pieces beyond repair. Each fragment was a memory, a hope, a promise that had dissolved. Not because of shock, not anymore. The shocks had hardened me, so I no longer felt pain completely, only exhaustion and weariness, but because I once thought if I just tried a little harder, forgave one more time, everything could be saved. I thought I could use love to patch up the broken pieces, to rebuild a collapsed home. I believed in the fairy tale of love and compassion, believed in unrealistic things. But the truth was, she didn't need saving. She had chosen to leave me long ago. She just hadn't put it into words. She had freed herself from this marriage while I was still stubbornly clinging to something that was dead, a soul that had departed. I had spent too much time and energy trying to save a sunken ship. I didn't sleep that night. She, however, slept deeply, her breathing steady, calm, like a carefree child, without a worry, without a hint of remorse. The rain outside the window ceaselessly pattered, as if weeping for my tragic fate, like the tears I couldn't shed. I lay beside her, my back to her. Didn't touch her. Didn't cry. My tears had dried up, the pain had turned into extreme fatigue, a spiritual exhaustion, a hopeless emptiness. I just quietly looked up at the ceiling and admitted I had lost. Not to the other man, but lost in my own efforts to hold on to someone who no longer wanted to stay, lost in my own blind stubbornness, lost in the battle with a heart that no longer belonged to me, lost in a game where I had gambled everything. The next morning I left a note on the table, the third time. I have nothing left to hold on to. I don't hate you, but I can't continue to forgive on your behalf when you don't feel remorse. Find the peace you desire and be true to your feelings. Then I left the house. Didn't take much. A few clothes, my wallet, car keys. I just needed to reclaim myself. The man who once thought love could mend everything now understood no one can love for someone who doesn't want to stay, no one can hold on to a heart that wants to leave, and no one can deceive themselves forever. The truth, no matter how painful, is the only liberation. I still remember clearly that fateful night when everything began to crack. It was late at night over a year ago. I was sitting on the sofa in the living room, my laptop on my lap. The screen dim, but my mind no longer paying attention. I had been working late, waiting for her to return from a business trip. The room was silent, only the hum of the computer and the sound of the night wind blowing through the crack in the door. Suddenly a sense of unease crept into my heart, a vague premonition, but strong enough to keep me awake all night, an unnamed anxiety constantly surrounding me. A bad omen lingering in my mind. Her phone was left on the coffee table right next to me. A careless habit that I later realized was a sign of indifference, of carelessness, of contempt. I didn't intend to touch it, but suddenly a message appeared, dazzling me like a sharp blade, piercing the silent night, cutting through the false peace, exposing the cruel truth. "I miss you. Not just today." An unfamiliar name, overly intimate words accompanied by a red heart. My heart seemed to stop. The whole world spun, everything around me became meaningless, leaving only pain and doubt. I don't know how my trembling hand touched the screen, but I read the conversation that lasted only 3 days, enough to know they had met. More than once. Flirty words, secret dates, everything clearly unfolded before my eyes, like a horrifying film replaying in slow motion, frame by frame, detail by detail etched into my mind. I didn't ask immediately. I waited for her to come home, waited in terrifying silence, each second passing like a century, each breath heavy, full of anticipation and indignation. 1 a.m. The door opened. The soft click of high heels on the floor, like the footsteps of death approaching. She was tired, tossing her bag onto the chair, a familiar gesture, but today full of strangeness, coldness, indifference. I looked at her, saying nothing. Just picked up my phone, placed it on the table, the screen still showing the message like a silent, undeniable indictment. She looked at the message. Didn't deny it. Didn't ask, "Who sent that?" Like an innocent person, didn't show confusion or surprise. She just sat down and remained silent. A heavy silence full of guilt, full of defiance, as if she was ready for this confrontation. "How long?" I asked, my voice dry, bitter. Just a few weeks, just an impulse, nothing deep. She replied, her voice slightly trembling as if asking for a lighter sentence, as if it were just a small, insignificant mistake, a fleeting crush not worth bothering about. Did you sleep with him? I asked, though I feared the answer, feared the truth would crumble before my eyes, feared facing the ultimate betrayal, feared hearing words I never wanted to hear. She nodded. Didn't cry, didn't apologize immediately. She just said, I don't know why I was like that, I just felt like I wasn't myself in this marriage. I felt suffocated, stuck like a bird in a cage. I needed an escape. I wanted to scream, wanted to break something, wanted to shatter this false silence, wanted to slap her face to make her realize what she was doing. But instead, I poured a glass of water, placed it in front of her, then said, my voice strangely calm. The calmness of someone who had gone numb, of someone who had experienced too much pain. I won't forgive tonight, but I haven't left yet. I'll give you one last chance to atone. She looked up at me, tears in her eyes for the first time. Surprise, a little relief, and also shame. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but I didn't know if they were tears of remorse or tears of liberation when guilt was exposed. The following days were like a taut wire. We lived in a heavy, stifling atmosphere, like two strangers living under one roof trying to maintain a charade. She tried, clearly. Cooked meals, asked about me, little by little left her phone openly on the table, asked for a transfer closer to home to have more time for family, even suggested marriage counseling. She did everything a repentant person could do, trying to patch up the broken pieces, trying to mend the fractured relationship. And I tried to smile, tried to nod, tried to pretend things were slowly getting better, tried to believe in promises, tried to believe in a future without pain, a future where we could overcome everything. I once thought one mistake cannot define a whole person. Everyone has moments of weakness. Love can overcome everything, can forgive all mistakes. I wanted to believe she still loved me, and that I was compassionate enough to keep this family, to keep the home I had built for so long, to keep the memories I once cherished, even if they had been tainted. One evening as I was doing the dishes, she hugged me from behind. The first time in a month of coldness, a weak, fragile hug, but I still felt a hint of warmth from it. I know you're not over it, but thank you for not leaving me. I will never disappoint you again. I turned around, hugged her tightly, a hug full of despair, full of fragile hope for a second chance, a rebirth. And for the first time I whispered into her ear words that tore at my heart, don't make me do it. I don't know if I have enough for a second time. My heart already hurts too much, I can't take any more. She nodded, teary-eyed. As for me at that moment, I truly believed we could move on. We could overcome this. We could rebuild everything from the wreckage, from the ashes. We traveled, took photos, had dinner out like newlyweds, trying to recreate lost happy moments, trying to paint a perfect picture for the outside world, a picture that only we knew was false. No one in the family knew what had happened. Friends still thought we were fine, a happy couple, a symbol of love and understanding. And honestly, at some point I believed it too. I had deceived myself into thinking that everything had returned to normal, that the wound had healed, that I had truly forgiven. But a crack, no matter how many layers of paint you cover it with, cannot become an intact wall again. It remains there smoldering, waiting for a day to burst open to reveal the cruel truth. I started to fear late-night messages, feared her eyes lingering a little longer on someone, a meaningful, mysterious gaze. Feared myself, because my trust was no longer unconditional. It had been eroded, crushed, completely gone. And it was in that false okayness. The second time came unannounced, without fanfare, without a hint. The second time, it didn't come with a sudden shock like the first. It came quietly, silently, like a chronic illness, slowly eroding my strength and trust little by little until I was completely exhausted. No strange messages appeared on the lock screen. No evenings she came home unusually late. No man emerged from the shadows for me to confront, for me to vent my anger, for me to find a reason to explode. Only distance. A kind of distance that cannot be seen with the naked eye, but you know it exists. Whenever two people sit in the same room with nothing left to say, nothing left to share, only silence enveloping them. A terrifying, deadly silence, like a grave burying our love. I began to feel something was wrong when she looked at her phone more than she looked at me, when her fingers glided across the screen more passionately than touching my hand, when her eyes were glued to the screen without any intention of looking up, without caring about my presence. She smiled at the screen more than she smiled at me. Radiant, natural smiles that I hadn't seen in her for a long time. That laughter, though not for another man, was not for me either. It was for another world, a virtual world she was living in. And especially, when I said, I love you, she only nodded. A soulless, emotionless nod like a pre-programmed answer. Not because she didn't hear clearly, But because that phrase no longer evoked any emotion in her, it became meaningless, empty, like a cliche repeated over and over. The cruelest twist of the second time wasn't betrayal by physical action, but betrayal by emotion, by cruel indifference, by the complete departure of her heart from me. She didn't need another man to deceive me anymore. She just needed her heart to wander, and I realized that, painfully realizing I was no longer a part of her emotional world. One day, as she was working on her laptop in the living room, I walked by and glimpsed her screen. Not a message, not an email, but a post on an online confessional forum. The title of that post was like a knife plunging straight into my heart, a silent confession, a raw truth. I tried to come back, but my heart still belongs elsewhere. I don't know if I can be true to myself when I'm with him anymore. I didn't need to read more. I wasn't angry. My heart didn't pound like the first time. I was too tired to be angry. I only felt the old feeling return, but this time it didn't hurt. It just made me tired. Exhausted to the core, tired of forgiving, tired of deceiving myself, tired of the hopeless battle to hold on to something that no longer belonged to me, something that was dead. I asked directly that evening as she stepped out of the bathroom, a weak, desperate question: "Are you feeling lost again?" She was silent. Her gaze softened, not avoiding mine. Then she nodded. "Not you, I swear. It's just, I feel like I'm not myself when I'm with you. I need another space, another release. I feel like my heart has gone too far, it can't come back anymore." That line sounded like a repeat from the first time. Excuses, explanations, all eerily familiar, like a pre-written script. I asked, "This time, how long?" She looked at me. Didn't lie, because perhaps she knew I was too tired to hear any more lies. "Just a few weeks. I didn't intend for things to go far. I just found a place to share, to feel like myself, to find peace in my soul." A moment of weakness. That's how she defined the situation. Those two words made me laugh. This time it was a genuine laugh, a bitter, sarcastic laugh full of contempt for myself for being too naive, too blind. "You call emotional betrayal a moment of weakness, a heart that is no longer here? That's not weakness, that's a choice. You chose to leave me, even if not by physical action." She didn't argue. She just remained silent, head bowed. I said nothing. I just stood up, grabbed my coat, and went for a walk in the cold night. The chill permeated my skin, but it wasn't as cold as the chill in my heart, a coldness that went to the bone. I walked aimlessly around the neighborhood, one hand in my pocket, the other holding my phone. Not calling anyone, not wanting to share this pain with anyone, because I knew no one could understand my exhaustion, my utter depletion at this moment. I just wanted to face the cruel truth alone. I wondered, why did I hurt less than the first time? Was it because I was used to it? Or was it because I was also slowly withdrawing from this relationship myself? Or was it because my heart had gone numb, no longer able to feel pain, because it had been hurt too many times to the point where there was nothing left to hurt? When I returned, she was still sitting on the couch, not crying, not screaming for forgiveness, just knowing I would stay again, forgive again, continue to endure again. An acceptance of fate, a predetermined arrangement. And I actually did it. I gave her another chance. I deceived myself again. I said, "If there's a next time, don't say it's a moment of weakness. Tell me the truth that you don't want to be here anymore. Tell me the truth that you want to leave. I don't have the strength to deceive myself anymore. I can't keep playing the role of the forgiving husband." She nodded, said thank you. Her voice was weak, lifeless. No hugs, no intimacy. We went to bed like roommates who had just resolved a minor disagreement. Everything returned to its false peace. We continued to live in parallel worlds where each person created a facade for themselves to exist, to hide the raw truth. But you know, the most terrifying thing after forgiveness isn't losing trust in others, it's losing trust in yourself. I started not believing my own feelings were real anymore. I wasn't sure if I truly loved her, or if I was just stubbornly clinging to an illusion, a definition of family I had created for myself. I began to doubt myself, my own decisions. I watched her smile, and wondered, was that smile for me or someone else? Or was it just a mask hiding her true feelings, a way for her to exist in this marriage, a way for her to reassure herself? I started to feel tired trying to love someone I wasn't sure I could still trust enough to love. I was tired of fighting with myself, with unanswered questions, with sleepless nights, with restless dreams. And so when the third time came, I wasn't angry. No questioning, no tormenting myself or her. All negative emotions had drained away, leaving only emptiness and extreme exhaustion and ultimate helplessness. I just asked, my voice eerily calm, like a final judgment, an irreversible ending, "Do you still think you're wrong?" And when she answered no, I knew. I had forgiven for the last time long ago, long before this confession was uttered, long before I saw her at the coffee shop, Long before I discovered that fateful message. It was just that day that I finally had the courage to admit I had nothing left to hold on to. I was exhausted. I let go with a strange serenity, like shedding a 1,000-pound weight. The divorce didn't happen with tears, no words of resentment or hatred. It happened in silence. A cold, bitter silence, yet also full of peace, of two souls finding liberation. Between two people who once shared a bed, once shared everything in life, now sat at opposite ends of the dining table, looking at each other as if they had become strangers, polite, calm, and with nothing left to say. All emotions were dead, buried under layers of fatigue and hurt, leaving only emptiness and blandness. "Do you really want to stop?" she asked, her voice surprisingly calm, as if this were a business negotiation, not the end of a marriage, the end of a part of life, the end of a dream. I nodded. A decisive nod, without hesitation, without a hint of regret. "This time I don't need an apology. And you don't need forgiveness. So what's left to continue? We have nothing left to give each other but exhaustion." She said nothing, just lowered her head, her eyes still empty, expressionless, as if she had accepted her fate. No tears, no sadness. She also seemed to find liberation in this decision, a release from the burden of marriage and expectations. I looked at her, and for the first time I saw clearly, you're not holding on anymore. Not because you accept breaking up, but because you never truly came back, never truly were here, never truly belonged to me. She had left a long time ago. I was just too stubborn to realize it, too blind to accept it. We finalized the divorce quickly. No property disputes, no arguments over benefits. Everything proceeded clearly, methodically, as if we were signing a contract to end an unprofitable business relationship without emotion. The house was sold. Each of us took half of the material value, half of what remained, like splitting a shattered dream. As for the rest, the cuts in our hearts, the invisible wounds, no one wanted to keep them, but no one could give them back either. They remained there, an indelible reminder, a costly lesson I had to pay with my youth. The last night we lived together, we sat in the living room, each with a cup of tea. No music, no TV, no bright lights, only the faint yellow glow from a corner lamp casting shadows on two faces that were too tired, too hardened by pain, too accustomed to silence. "I don't hate you," she said, her voice light as if shedding a burden. "I just couldn't force myself to love you the way you needed. I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't live in a role forever. I needed to be true to myself." I nodded. "I don't hate you either. I just couldn't keep deceiving myself that forgiveness is how you keep someone. I couldn't live in an illusion anymore. I couldn't keep loving someone who no longer wanted to be here, no longer wanted to belong to me." She asked, "Do you ever wish you had left sooner?" I thought about it, then shook my head, a slight smile appearing on my lips, a smile of acceptance and peace. "No. Because if I hadn't gone through all of this, I probably would have always thought love just needed effort to be enough. Now I know it's not. Love needs willingness, sincerity, respect, and most importantly, the presence of both hearts, the harmony of two souls." I needed this lesson. The next morning, she picked up her suitcase and walked out the door. Didn't look back. Her shadow disappeared behind the door, taking with it a part of my life, a part of a sad past, and all those unspoken burdens. I didn't see her off, didn't hug her, didn't say take care. Those words became meaningless. I just stood there silently watching the door close and thought, this is the first time you walked away. And I didn't hold you back. And I didn't need to. This was my own liberation for both of us. A bittersweet but necessary liberation. In the days that followed, I didn't fall into crisis or depression as many might expect. I woke up on time, made coffee, went to work. Didn't delete photos, didn't smash memories. I left everything there as a part of me. A part that had lived, had believed, had forgiven, and finally, had stopped at the right time. A courageous stop, a stop to allow myself to find peace, to start a new chapter in life. A friend asked me, "Do you ever want to go back to her?" I replied, "No, not because I don't love her anymore, but because I can't go back to my old self, the man who once accepted suffering in the name of love, the man who once deceived himself, burying himself in pain. I need a new beginning, a new me, a true love, not blind compassion." My story has no clear villain. She wasn't bad. I wasn't perfect either. We were just two people who entered marriage for the wrong reasons, so we couldn't write the right ending. We were two lost souls trying to cling to a definition of happiness that neither of us truly felt, a societal imposition, a forced arrangement that destroyed both of us. And now I only wish for one thing. May you find someone who doesn't need to forgive you, to love you, someone who accepts you completely without hiding, without having to run from your true feelings. Someone who can bring you the peace you've been seeking. As for me, I will learn to love without suffering, learn to love myself before loving anyone else. I will learn to cherish what I have and never try to hold on to something that no longer belongs to me, something that no longer holds value. I will seek a true love where forgiveness comes from the heart, not from exhaustion. There are divorces not caused by blatant betrayal, but because one person no longer needs forgiveness and the other can no longer force themselves to be compassionate. It is a liberation for both, no matter how painful, no matter if the scars may never heal, but it is necessary. I share this story not for your pity, nor to blame anyone. I share it because if you are holding on to someone through compassion, ask yourself, does that person still want to stay? Or are you just holding them with your own pain and sacrifice? Is that forgiveness saving you? Or is it merely eroding your own soul, turning you into a shadow of yourself? My story. A bitter journey of forgiveness and acceptance is a powerful reminder that compassion has its limits. Sometimes letting go is not a failure, but the courage to find yourself again and allow true happiness to enter your life. Never lose yourself trying to save something that no longer belongs to you, because you deserve a complete and happy life, a life that doesn't require pretense or suffering. If this story has sparked thoughts, emotions, or if you have similar experiences, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. Each of your shares is an act of empathy, helping us feel less alone on this journey on the path to finding happiness. Don't forget to hit like to support this story. Share it with friends you think might need to hear it. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next profound stories, and turn on the notification bell to get updates on my latest videos. Thank you for listening. See you in the next videos.